The small apartment had always been their sanctuary. Every time Lila stepped through the door, it felt like entering another world. One where she and Daniel could just be themselves without the pressures and expectations of the outside world. The world where no one knew they were married. No one, not even her family. Lila sat on the edge of the couch, running her fingers through her hair, the weight of the secret she had kept for 5 years pressing heavily on her shoulders. She looked at Daniel, who was leaning against the kitchen counter, his arms crossed, his expression torn between love and frustration. "We can't keep doing this," he said quietly. "It's been 5 years, Lila. 5 years of hiding, of sneaking around. I love you, but I can't be your secret anymore." His words hit her like a punch to the gut because she knew he was right. They had gotten married in secret, quietly in a small ceremony with just a witness from the courthouse, because Lila hadn't been ready to tell her family. At the time, it had seemed romantic, thrilling, even like they were living in their own little world. Her family had disapproved of Daniel from the start, thinking he wasn't good enough for her, that his life as an artist wasn't stable, that he couldn't provide the kind of future they wanted for her. But none of that had mattered to Lila. She loved Daniel with a depth she hadn't known was possible, and he loved her just as fiercely. Their marriage was a promise to each other, a commitment that didn't need anyone's approval. Still, she hadn't been able to bring herself to tell her family. The fear of their disappointment, of the judgment, had kept her silent. Year after year she told herself she would tell them soon, but soon never came. Now Daniel was right. The weight of the secret was tearing them apart. "I know," Lila whispered, her voice shaky. "I just don't know how to tell them. They'll never accept us." Daniel's eyes softened, but the hurt remained. "Lila, they don't have to accept us. We're married. You don't need their permission to be with me. But you do need to be honest with them and with yourself. If you're ashamed of us, then what's the point?" "I'm not ashamed," she said quickly, her heart racing. "I'm just scared. Scared of the fallout. Scared of losing her family. Scared that they would never forgive her for hiding something so important for so long. But more than that, she was scared of what it would mean for her relationship with Daniel if she didn't find the courage to face the truth. He deserved better. He deserved a life where their love wasn't hidden in the shadows. The breaking point came a week later at a family dinner. It was the kind of gathering Lila had grown up with. Her parents, her brother, cousins, aunts, and uncles, all together in the large house where she had spent her childhood. Normally, Lila would attend these dinners alone, telling her family that Daniel couldn't make it or that they were just dating casually. But tonight was different. Tonight everything was about to change. Sitting at the dinner table, surrounded by the laughter and conversation of her family, Lila felt the secret burning inside her. Every time her parents asked about her life, every time they hinted at her future, she felt the walls closing in. She could hear Daniel's voice in her mind, the plea for honesty, the ultimatum that had hung between them since that night. And then her mother said it, the question that finally pushed Lila to the edge. "When are you going to find someone serious, Lila? You're not getting any younger and we want to see you settled down. That Daniel boy, he's nice, but we don't think he's the right fit for you. You deserve someone who can give you a stable life." Lila froze, her heart pounding. She looked around the table at the expectant faces of her family, and felt the words bubbling up before she could stop them. "I'm already married," she blurted out. The room fell silent. Her mother blinked, confusion crossing her face. "What?" Lila swallowed hard, feeling her hands tremble. "I've been married for 5 years. To Daniel." The silence was deafening. Her father's fork clattered to his plate, her brother stared at her as if she'd grown a second head, and her mother's face went pale. The weight of the truth hung heavy in the air, and Lila could feel the tension building like a storm about to break. 5 years, her father finally said, his voice low and dangerous. "You've been married for 5 years and didn't tell us?" Lila nodded, her throat tight. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I knew you wouldn't approve and I was scared. But I love him. I've always loved him." Her mother's face hardened. "You've been lying to us all this time? Hiding something this important? Lila, how could you?" Tears welled up in Lila's eyes as she stood up, her hands shaking. "I didn't mean to lie. I didn't want to lose you. But I can't keep living like this. I love Daniel and I'm not going to hide it anymore." Her father stood up as well, anger radiating from him. "Do you realize what you've done? Do you understand the disrespect you've shown us by hiding this from your family? Lila's voice cracked. I didn't want to choose between you and him. But I'm not going to lose him just because you don't approve. We're married and I'm not asking for your permission anymore. Her father's face twisted with anger, but her mother spoke first, her voice cold. If you walk out of this house with that man, don't expect to come back. The words hit Lila like a blow. She had known it would be difficult, had known there would be consequences, but hearing them made it real. Her family, her entire world, was about to change forever. She had hoped they would understand, that they might eventually come to accept Daniel, but the harshness in her mother's voice told her otherwise. But there was no turning back now. She couldn't live a lie any longer. She had chosen love and now she had to stand by that choice. Without another word, Lila turned and walked out of the house, leaving behind the life she had always known. As she stepped into the cool night air, her heart heavy with both grief and relief, she saw Daniel waiting for her outside. His face was filled with concern, but when their eyes met there was something else there too, love. The kind of love that had kept them together all these years, even in the shadows. It's done, Lila said softly, her voice trembling. I told them. Daniel stepped forward, wrapping his arms around her, pulling her close. Are you okay? She nodded, though tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know what's going to happen with my family. But I couldn't keep hiding. Not from them. Not from you. This is who I am. We're married and I'm not ashamed of that. Daniel pressed a kiss to her forehead, holding her as she cried softly into his chest. I love you, he whispered. No matter what happens, we're in this together. Lila knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Her family might never accept her choice, might never forgive her for the years of secrecy. But for the first time in years she felt free. She had chosen love, and while it came with its costs, she knew it was the only choice she could have made. And as she stood there in Daniel's arms, the night stretching out before them, she knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The truth had surfaced, and with it the chance to finally live fully in the light.